Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Asian Pacific American Institute for Congressional Studies 2025 Energy and Commerce Summit. My name is Tanya Layden, and I am the Vice President of Development and External Affairs at APAICS. The APAICS Energy and Commerce Summit brings together industry and community leaders alongside Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander members of Congress and members of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus to discuss top-line energy and commerce concerns that are affecting the AA-NHPI community and the nation at large. Today, we'll hear about the changing landscape of transportation, the evolving demand for energy production, innovations in manufacturing, and the intersections of food insecurity and agriculture. We'll also speak with Manish Babna, the President and CEO of the Natural Resources Defense Council, about what advancing clean energy means for the AA and NHPI community and about his journey as a leader in this space. I'd like to thank our summit partners, Amazon, Toyota, the Gates Foundation, Cargill, Coca-Cola, Delta, NRDC, and PG&E. Your support enables APAICS to fulfill its mission of promoting AA and NHPI participation and representation at all levels of the political process, from community service to elected office. Our next panel is the changing landscape of transportation. As technology rapidly transforms how we move through the world, communities face new challenges and opportunities in creating accessible, sustainable, and inclusive transportation systems. This panel will explore innovations shaping the future, from autonomous vehicles to alternative fuel sources, while grounding the conversation in the lived realities of communities where car dependency remains high. I'm thrilled to introduce our first speaker for this panel, Congressman Ami Bera. Congressman Bera represents California's 6th Congressional District. He serves as the KPAC Whip and on key committees, including the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. Please welcome Congressman Bera to the summit.
Hi, I'm Congressman Ami Bera. I want to thank APAICS for hosting this mobility summit. I'm back home here in Sacramento County, outside one of our light rail stations. We're thinking about the future of public transportation. That could be light rail systems like we have here. That could also be cleaner burning fuels, electric vehicles, etc., hydrogen economy. So let's imagine the future that we want, a clean future, new methods of mobility. Here in Sacramento County, we're working on light rail. We're trying to build higher density housing around our light rail stations, so it's easier for folks to move around. They don't have to jump in their car, etc. But if they are in their cars, let's make sure those cars are not contributing to climate change and that we're reducing carbon emissions. Thank you and have a great summit.
Thank you for those remarks, Congressman Bera. I'm pleased to introduce our moderator, Jarrett Stoltzfus. Jarrett has worked for over 15 years in the transportation sector and in his current role as the Director of Infrastructure and Transportation at Arnold Ventures, he works to advance scalable solutions for more efficient and effective transportation systems. Please give a warm welcome to our moderator, Jarrett, and our panelists.
Hey folks, I just want to thank everyone for joining today. We have a great group of panelists today. As Tanya mentioned, exploring innovations shaping the future while grounding conversation in the lived realities of Asian American, Pacific Islander, and Native Hawaiian communities. So without further ado, we'll move forth. I'll intro each of the speakers, and then we'll move through a series of questions. Today, we have a number of panelists. Sukh Kaur, City Council member from District 1 in San Antonio. Jumana Master, Program Manager, Sustainable Customer Experience at Global Sustainability at Delta Airlines. Robert Chiappetta, Director of Government Affairs at Toyota. And Jacob Aki, Senior Public Affairs Manager, Alaska Airlines and Hawaiian Airlines. So I'll start with just introducing the panelists, ask you about your organization and the work you do on this topic. So I'll start with Sukh Kaur. Please give us your background and talk a little about the work you do.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here with you all today. So, like mentioned, I'm a councilwoman for District 1 in San Antonio. I was elected first in June of 2023 as the first South Asian council member for the city of San Antonio. And it's truly been an honor to represent that background, that community for our residents that live in our city. As a council member, we primarily focus on issues that are affecting residents day in and day out. We're the closest elected official to our residents. And so we've really been trying to address some of the issues that have been affecting San Antonio, which includes improving our street projects. So really focusing on infrastructure, ensuring accessibility and walkability is true for all of our residents, regardless of which zip code that they live in. And we've been really focusing on public safety with animal care services, ensuring we're addressing our spay and neuter for our dog population. And then lastly, focusing on our parks and community centers. So ensuring that everyone has a great and thriving park to be able to access and use. In addition, as just a little bit about my background, I'm a first generation college student, first generation American. My family and I immigrated here when we were very young, and come from the background of the Sikh faith, so the first also Sikh American to serve on council. So one of the ways in which I try to create that diversity and representation is even as simple as things like the invocators that we bring to council, so that we're really showing the diversity of faith, the diversity of background that exists within our community. So every time that we bring an invocator, it's an honor to be able to share someone either from my community or another South Asian community as well. So those are some of the things that we've been working on as a priority, and excited to get into the conversation.
Thank you so much, Jumana Master. Just if you could introduce yourself, your background, and the work you do.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Jumana Master. I'm on the sustainability team at Delta Airlines. My role is really twofold. The first part is something I've dubbed as the Get It on a Plane team. So I get new innovations on board for the first time in an effort to accelerate our sustainability strategy. I primarily do this through something called the Aviation Challenge. It's hosted by our SkyTeam Airline Alliance, and it's a competition amongst all the airlines that participate to try to fly the most sustainable flight possible. This considers our entire operation, so everything from the fuel that we use to what's happening below wing to the food that we source. And then everything is shared open source amongst that group so that we can all help advance sustainability. So that's part of my role. And then the second part of my role is aggregating and reporting on sustainability consumer insights. Thank you for having me today. I'm excited for this conversation.
Thank you so much. Next up, Robert Chiappetta, Director of Government Affairs at Toyota. If you want to just talk a little bit about yourself, organization, the work you do.
Sure. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone, and thank you to APAICS for including Toyota in this important conversation. I'm Robert Chiappetta, Director of Government Affairs for Toyota. Toyota is committed to reducing carbon emissions in the automotive sector as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And we have led the way in advocating for transportation policies in this area. And so I look forward to the conversation today.
And next and last up, Jacob Aki, if you could just introduce yourself, your background, and your organization.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jarrett. Aloha mai kako. My name is Jacob Aki, and I'm the Senior Public Affairs Manager here at Alaska and Hawaiian Airlines. And in this role, I lead all of our government and public affairs efforts here in the islands as well as in the Pacific region as well. Part of my role is also leading our aviation industry's efforts to promote SAF here in the islands. So really good to be here with you all. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And we'll move into the questions and answer period now. So I'll start with the first question. What are the challenges that you see in creating accessible, sustainable, and inclusive transportation systems? And I'll start with Sukh.
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges that we have in our community right now is just one, continuous funding for transportation. The way that transportation is funded comes from our sales tax dollars, and ensuring that we have sufficient funding for new and continued transportation is really important. But another one is really just getting buy-in and support from the community. We are starting 2 new advanced rapid transit lines in the city, and one is fully funded and the other one is not. But there's a lot of community members where if you're not using public transit, it's difficult to get that support and buy-in to change potentially traffic patterns and how folks are accessing their neighborhoods for the rest of the other community, for like community members that really need it.
Thanks so much. I'll ask the, again, same question to Jacob. What are challenges you see in creating accessible, sustainable, and inclusive transportation systems?
Yeah, I think really looking at it from a aviation lens, sustainable aviation fuel really is that big effort that I think across the aviation industry we are really looking at, and is really our most feasible way to really reduce our carbon footprint. And scaling SAF here in the islands and really scaling any type of renewable energy is hard because of our isolation, because of our limited infrastructure, and just the cost of doing business here. So since there's looking at it from a SAF lens, since there's no really local refining capacity, SAF and its feedstocks are going to have to be shipped in, which makes it more expensive, and really hard to manage. A lot of our infrastructure, a lot of our airports aren't set up for SAF yet. And, when we want to look at it from a grower's point of view, there's not enough open land for us to really also home grow a lot of our local feedstock. There's also very little support at the state and county levels just due to the amount of resources that it's going to take to really meaningfully invest in these systems. So due to our geographic isolation, and due to limited amount of resources, it's really hard to scale up SAF. It's really hard to scale up, any of these systems that we hope to really move our industries forward. So,
Jacob, for our audience members that aren't familiar, could you define SAF?
So SAF is what is the acronym for sustainable aviation fuel. And I think Jumana is going to go into a little bit in her portion, but it really is a cleaner fuel as compared to conventional jet A fuel. And obviously with the amount of flying that's going on, electrification of planes isn't something that is feasible yet. So SAF really is the only meaningful way for us as an aviation industry to really reduce our carbon footprint. So,
hey, thank you so much. Jumana, because you represent aviation organization as well, and we'll move to you next, kind of following up from what Jacob just talked about.
Yeah, definitely. When I think of the challenge of decarbonizing aviation, I mean, at its core, the miracle of flight relies on burning jet fuel, which creates emissions. That makes aviation a very hard to abate sector. Approximately 90% of our emissions come from burning jet fuel. And we're very reliant on external infrastructure and tech advancements. And similarly to what Jacob said, SAF is something that really relies on having that built out infrastructure. SAF is one of our best levers today because it's a fuel that we can drop into the aircraft that we use now. So it's not waiting on future aircraft. And as Jacob was mentioning, sustainable aviation fuel is a more sustainable form of fuel because it comes from more sustainable feedstocks. It actually can reduce life cycle emissions of fuel by 80%. So it's a really great lever for us. At Delta, we have a goal of utilizing 10% sustainable aviation fuel by 2030. But currently, we don't produce enough sustainable aviation fuel in an entire year to power the world's airlines for 1 week. And it's also 2 to 5 times more expensive than conventional jet fuel. So, the things that are in our control that we can try to do is signaling demand to further attract capital, encouraging incentives, and continuing to ensure cross-sector collaboration and planning so that we have opportunities to make SAF more accessible and scale it.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. And last but not least, Robert, what are the challenges you see in creating accessible, sustainable, and inclusive transportation systems?
Thanks, Jarrett. Yeah, for the automobile industry, I would say consistently the 2 main factors that make it difficult for our customers to choose more sustainable vehicle transportation options EVs in particular include, first and foremost, affordability. And secondly, the concerns related to the charging infrastructure. So I think, as you know, EVs are generally more expensive than comparable gasoline-powered vehicles, especially in the affordable segments or the lower cost parts of the market. And this is due mostly to the high cost of the battery. Even with government incentives, the initial purchase price can still be a barrier for many customers. Also, the availability and reliability of charging stations, particularly in public spaces and in residential areas, continue to be a challenge. That leads to other kinds of worries and concerns that customers have, like range anxiety, as well as recharging wait times. Currently in the US, EVs represent about 9% of new car registrations and about 1.5% of all vehicles on the road. This is according to Edmunds.com. We still have a long way to go.
Thank you, Robert. Following up from this previous question, how do the challenges in creating accessible, sustainable, and inclusive transportation systems impact the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander community, and other communities as well? I'll start with Sukh.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I think one of the biggest challenges is really trying to change behaviors of the communities and ensuring that everyone has equitable, accessible opportunity regardless of age. Particularly in our community, there are a lot of folks aging, and so we want to offer more opportunities to access either public transit or even economically friendly or environmentally friendly vehicles, or even flights that are using more sustainable fuels. All of those options need to be available for our aging Asian American population. And so we want to make sure that that's accessible and that folks have a way that they can use it that, one, makes them feel comfortable, makes them feel safe, and is not a burden to be able to access. And so that for us requires more frequency, more accessibility, and just more awareness about the options that exist and how easy they can be to use.
Thank you so much. Jacob, how do these challenges impact the AA and HPI community?
Yeah, I think as these various industries start to grow, we really need to make sure that our communities have a real shot at the jobs and the opportunities that really come with this. Oftentimes in advocacy, as we're trying to scale up these industries, advocates often talk about the opportunities for job growth, the opportunity for new, good paying jobs. And too often it's our communities that live closest to these impacts, but are really the last to benefit. So if we don't invest in training and we don't invest in job opportunities and access for our communities to these new industries and to these new sectors, we risk leaving our people be in the dust when it comes to the transition to a economy or to a industry that's really supposed to move us forward. So making sure that we invest in our communities and giving them opportunities to also grow from a socioeconomic impact, I think is really key.
Thank you, Jacob. And we'll close out this question with Robert. Again, how do these challenges impact the AA and HPI community?
Yeah, so for the automotive sector, there's a bit of a silver lining when it comes to EVs and the AA and HPI community. So in general, Asian Americans are actually among the most interested in purchasing and leasing EVs and other sort of advanced fuel technology vehicles. In fact, roughly 1 in 3 EV owners is Asian American. So while this may not be a statistic that's consistent across the entire AA and HPI community and in all parts of the US, there's some interesting correlations between EV buyers and Asian Americans. So for example, in California, I mentioned how in the US, the overall penetration of EVs is about 9%. In California actually has the highest penetration of EV sales for any state. There it's at about 23% of new car sales. California also happens to be the state with the largest population of Asian Americans. Also, as a group, Asian Americans have a significant buying power. So it's listed at about $1.6 trillion according to the 2019-2020 census. And, while not all Asian Americans are wealthy, of course, among those who are, many are willing to spend the extra money for an EV. I think the challenge really is, of course, in widening that appeal of EVs beyond those who are wealthy or who live in states where EVs are popular.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we talked about some of the challenges in creating accessible, sustainable, inclusive transportation systems, but what are some potential solutions? Again, I'll start with Sukh.
Yeah, thank you. I'm one of those Asian Americans that owns an electric vehicle, as does my brother-in-law. So we have 2 of 5 of us that are in that group of folks. Thinking about solutions, I think some of the solutions that we need to create from a policy level is ensuring that there's enough support and funding for public chargers. And so we often see that if you either live in a multifamily home or may not have the ability to add a charging station at your home, it's really important for you to be able to access that in a public space. And so we've been pushing really hard to create more public accessibility for EV chargers and pushing for our buildings, even our city buildings and parking lots, to have solar panels to be able to support some of those efforts as well. And in addition to the awareness challenge that I mentioned earlier, I think also for when we talk about public transit and other accessible transportation methods, it's again showing that transit is for everyone. And oftentimes folks in our community and others think that, oh, public transit is only for people that are with low-paying jobs or don't have access to car transportation, and ensuring that frequency is high, that it's not difficult to access and can actually be more efficient for folks is important. And showing that it's for all communities, I think, is creating more educational awareness that public transit and mass transit is for everyone.
Great. Thank you so much. Jumana, moving on to Jumana. We talked about some of the challenges, but what are some of the potential solutions?
Yeah, our net zero approach can really be defined in 3 categories. It's what we fly, how we fly, and the fuel that we use. I know I touched on the fuel piece a little bit. Since we have a Texas representative on the call, I did want to give a shout out. There's some really great renewable fuel work happening in Texas that I think we can all be excited about. Speaking more on the what we fly and how we fly, what we fly, making sure that we are renewing our fleet and have the most efficient aircraft. How we fly includes fuel efficiencies, so enhanced routing, reducing weight on board so that we're burning less fuel, minimizing auxiliary power unit use when we can, and then also reducing waste on board. The testing program that I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we've tested in that program and now has fully scaled is a new first of its kind paper cup that doesn't have a plastic lining. It removes 7 million pounds of plastic from the landfill every year. So if you've flown Delta recently, you've probably seen it. And then, so those are things that we're doing today. We also are investing in aircraft of the future. So looking to things like hydrogen fuel planes, blended wing body planes. We currently have partnerships with Airbus Zero E and Jet Zero to build some aircraft of the future. So definitely some exciting solutions in our future as well.
Thank you so much. Robert, we talked about the challenges, but what are some of the potential solutions?
Yeah, so Toyota has long advocated for our industry to adopt what we refer to as a multi-pathway approach to carbon reduction. We talked about how those with means are able to afford an EV, but others find it much more difficult. So under our strategy, customers are offered a range of sustainable solutions to meet their needs and their circumstances, rather than focus on a single technology, which may not be the most practical for everyone. We see a role for various technologies. For us, that includes hybrids, plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, of course, battery electric vehicles, and even hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles. The Prius, which was the first mass-produced and best-known hybrid, it exploded onto the U.S. market about 25 years ago, setting off a revolution in reduced carbon mobility. The all-new 2026 model gets a combined 57 miles per gallon. So for many customers, worry-free, highly fuel-efficient hybrid remains the most practical approach to reducing their carbon footprint. Increasingly, customers are considering what we call a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, larger electric battery than a regular hybrid, and it can be charged by plugging it into a standard outlet. These vehicles typically have an electric-only range of about 40 miles, which is ideal for customers with short commutes. The all-new Prius hybrid offers an estimated 44 miles all-electric driving range. And of course, after that 44 miles, the vehicle is driven as a highly fuel-efficient hybrid. Toyota is also continues to invest in EVs. By 2027, we'll have 6 battery electric vehicles for sale. Between Toyota and Lexus, we currently offer 32 electrified vehicle options in the U.S. Includes, again, the plug-in hybrids and battery electric vehicles. This year through May 2025, nearly half of our total sales volume has been an electrified vehicle of one kind or another. So, offering those different options, I think, helps make reduction more accessible to more and more people.
Lastly, Jacob.
Yeah, I think, from an aviation lens, Jumana did a really good job of really summarizing, what are some of the potential solutions and answers to some of these challenges. But the one thing I, really wanted to add is I think when you look at the aviation industry and you look at the, number of different companies, we are so competitive when it comes to marketing. We are so competitive when it comes to almost every aspect of the aviation industry. But the one area in which we are all working together, we are all aligned, is really in this sustainability field, right? We are all committed to ensuring that we as a collective industry is doing our part to really reduce our carbon footprint. And this is one area where we are all working hand in hand to make sure that we really achieve our goals, right? So I think that is a solution in itself in an industry where we are so competitive and the competition is so fierce. It's one of the solutions is coming together, to really make sure that we hit our collective goals. But I think when we look at, clean energy as a whole, I really circle back to what I said about it's important for us to really start to invest in workforce development for our people in these fields. These are new emerging industries. These are new emerging sectors. And I think there's a real opportunity to ensure that we get our people into the jobs, but we also partner with some trusted AA and HPI orgs to help cut down that culture barrier, to help get our people into these jobs and to even educate them about the different options that are now out there, whether it's in the automobile industry, whether it's in the aviation industry. I think it's breaking down these language and culture barriers and making our people understand that these efforts are not just for the rich, that these efforts are to ensure that everybody has access to these clean energy goals, to these clean energy jobs. I really, making sure that we're all working together, whether it's competitors, whether it's public-private partnerships. I think that's some of the ways that we can get, really get the ball rolling.
Thank you so much, Jacob. Again, we were just kind of covering the challenges in creating accessible, sustainable, inclusive transportation systems, but these solutions as well. Sukh, I think you wanted to add a little bit more.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Jacob was sharing about workforce development, because I do think it's so important for representation, right? Representation, we know, matters, and it matters in every industry, because when you have diverse folks sitting at a table, you come up with better solutions because you have a better range of backgrounds to be able to explore innovation and ideas. And so I wanted to say how important that is and how important it is for our community to start early. So not just at the workforce when you've graduated and are thinking about what career, but starting in the K-12 education system, ensuring that there are opportunities for career and technical education as early as 6th grade. So when folks are exploring and seeing what they're interested in, and that also comes back to our communities in general, ensuring that we are showing that there is opportunity for high career career trajectory in these areas, right? With automobile innovation, with aviation and innovation, ensuring that folks can see what opportunities they actually have. Sometimes in these fields, they don't get the same amount of love as, at least in the South Asian community, as doctors and attorneys do. And so ensuring that we're creating that awareness and helping kids really explore what's out there, whether it's through internships. In our community, Toyota does a really great job of offering that, as do a lot of our aviation partners that are located here, so that kids can get hands-on experience of what it feels like to be, in an aircraft, exploring all of the options for making things more innovative and efficient. Thanks for letting me share that.
So we talked about the impacts, but what can the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community be excited about as we look to the future? And how can we be sure that our community isn't left behind? Sukh?
So like I said, I think we can be excited about, going off of this workforce development. I think we can be excited about the opportunity that there is out there, even for autonomous vehicles. Like San Antonio is just starting to pilot now Waymo, and so I think there's a lot of opportunity both in the workforce and in being able to get some access to these jobs where we're creating brand new technology, and also from a usage standpoint, from folks that are whether we're using public transit or autonomous vehicles. There's a huge diaspora of things that are coming our way from the transportation standpoint. And so I think that there's a lot to be excited about when it comes to technology and how we're using it to make our day-to-day life more efficient and accessible. And for those of us that are still traveling with, aviation is a lot for some families in our communities that are traveling back and forth to either their countries where they were from and visiting. And we see a lot of our community members traveling to Asia because they want to go back to their families. And so making that process more innovative, more accessible, and ensuring that we know we're not, using so much jet fuel and hurting the environment every time we take a trip to India. I know folks would be really appreciative of that. So I think there's a lot to be excited about.
Thank you so much. Jacob, what can the AA and HPI community be excited about as we look to the future? And how can we be sure that our community is not left behind?
Yeah, I think we can be really excited and really jazzed about the potential for the growing focus on really equity, in these fields, right? Especially the chance to really shape what this industry and what these industries are really going to look like. Making sure and that there's targeted investments and stronger representation in these fields can really help to create opportunities to have really good jobs, and to really build resilient communities that help to ensure that our voices help define what this future looks like. So I think there's a lot of upside. I keep harping on the job opportunities. I really think there is a opportunity for our people to really get into these really good paying jobs. And in a state like mine, where resources are really limited, infrastructure is really limited, access to these types of jobs are very rare. So I think as we're starting to upstart these industries, as we're starting to scale up, making sure that we get our people in the door early, whether it's from a job standpoint, whether it's from a usage standpoint.
And lastly, Jumana, what can the AA and AHPI community be excited about as we look to the future? And how can we be sure that our community is not left behind?
Yeah, I think building a little bit off of the workforce development point, as well as making sure that our movements are inclusive and informed. I think of my home state, Georgia. It is home to the busiest airport in the world, also one of Georgia's top employers. And Georgia's Asian American demographic is one of the fastest growing demographics in the state. It's more than doubled in the last 2 decades. And we've seen increased representation in the political space and in voter turnout, but still in so many spaces we're thoroughly underrepresented. We're going through a critical transition right now where every job eventually is going to be a climate job, and we'll all have a part to play. So I think it's really important that our communities are a part of that movement, and the communities that are most impacted by the climate crisis should be informing the solutions. They should be in the rooms where those conversations are being had and at all tables where decisions are being made. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to build a just transition, and we need to make sure that our community is definitely part of that for the solutions to be informed and successful.
Thank you so much. That was our last question, structure question. But before I close out, I wanted to give an opportunity to see if anyone wanted to add anything, make some closing remarks. So I know Sukh wanted to make some mention, so I will pivot to her before I close out.
So Jumana just mentioned kind of the climate changes that are happening, and that, in the future, everything is going to be centered around what's going on with the climate changes in our communities and in our states and in our world. And it'd be remiss without talking and sharing about the floods that just happened in Texas, in Kerrville and Kerr County, and how immediately we look at the science of how that happens. And when you're in a drought, and then you have certain storms that are coming together, it's all coexisting with everything that's going on with climate adaptability in our communities. And so it's a big challenge that affects us in ways that we don't necessarily always consider. And so it's that because of that, it's important for us to be thinking about this innovation, to be thinking about ways that we can make every single mode of transportation more sustainable, and use times like this to remember that there is so much more work that we have to do. And while we talked about some of the great things already happening, that we can't take our foot off the gas. We have to keep pushing and keep showing our communities that even if it costs a little bit more, we're gaining years of life in the future for our environment and our grandkids and future great grandkids. And so that's the message that we have to keep sharing, that this is the work that we're doing today is about the future longevity of our communities, and it's really important.
Thank you so much. And I think last up, Jacob.
Yeah, I think the conversation that we had today really shows that there is a lot of effort being done in various industries, whether it's the automobile industry, the aviation industry, and for Sukh, really in the government sector. And I think this is something that isn't a Republican issue. It's not a Democratic issue. It's a people issue. And it's making sure that decarbonizing the transportation industry, ensuring that we have policies that ensure that people of all walks of life have the opportunities to engage and to benefit from it, I think is super key. And especially for our AA and HPI communities, I think it's really important from a policy standpoint that when we're setting these broad policies, that we think about what is the downstream effect and how can we ensure that not just a top 1% have access to all of these benefits, but how do we break down the barriers? How do we break down the language access issues to ensure that our communities who really can benefit a lot have the opportunities to engage? As I shared, whether it's from the workforce standpoint, whether it's from a consumer standpoint, these are issues that affect all of us. And I think it's important for people to understand that there is folks like us, that this is our job, right? Our job is to ensure that equitable access is provided to people from all walks of life, so it's something that I think from a policy standpoint, there's a lot of work that's being done, but it doesn't get the highlight that it should due to the many other issues that we're facing, such as cost of living, homelessness. But the work is being done, and industries and the private industries are doing really a lot and making a lot of investments to ensure that the work gets done. So
Thank you so much, Jacob. So that actually wraps up our panel. I appreciate all our panelists coming today, and special thanks to APAICS for sponsoring this effort. As we discussed, there's certainly some challenges, but also opportunities and solutions, and creating accessible, sustainable, and inclusive transportation systems, as well as the policy shifts needed to ensure those advancements are responsive and to the needs of the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community. Thank you to our panel for the robust discussion today, and looking forward to the path forward. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.